My friends, if you look around the globe, and maybe actually into your own family and heart, you will find that one of the most frequent and painful illnesses on this planet is that of ingratitude. Is it not true? Yesterday we had the feast of Our Lady of Knock. Our Lady said nothing, but she was with them. And sometimes that's the best way of sharing pain. They had nothing. Nothing. You know the story, don't you, how Archdeacon Kavanagh, having no stipends and aware of the plight of all these dying people without a Mass for them, offered 100 consecutive Holy Masses for those who had died. And she came. She came in a Eucharistic context. Now, you place yourself in the Ireland of old. First of all those years under the penal laws, remember the Mass rock, as the Pope reminded the Irish some years ago. Those celebrations where they were so glad to find anywhere where there was a priest and they would protect. The way that the Blessed Angels was handled, communions well prepared. Remember then how the famine took off thousands upon thousands in a few years. What they would give for a potato. 3 years of consecutive failure of the precious crop. Nothing. Now look at the average family, the average spoiled child. I don't like that! It could be our case as well, my friends. It happens on every level in life. Alas, not least in holy matrimony. We priests know it only too well. Just the other day I had a young mother with me, and she said to me quite seriously, actually, my husband is quite good to me now. He no longer now beats me more than once a week. It goes on more than you think. But it might not necessarily have to be physical. It can be simply taken for granted. Just a bit of furniture, an automatic preparer of food, a washer of dishes and of floors. I have my computer. I have my television. I have my friends outside. Remember when once they first courted and said, I love you. Now they coexist. Some years ago, when doing theology, there was a classmate who happened to come to tea one day, and she was taken back by one simple thing, which for us meant nothing. Your father always says, Diolch yn fawr, thank you very much, every time Mum gives him something at table. Parents. Now, some of us have lost our parents. Some of you have not. And if you haven't, don't take them for granted, for one day you too will lose them. It's now too late to say thank you. It's also too late to appreciate perhaps what they were trying to do for our good. I remember one day when I was about 19, washing the dishes with Mum, and she looked over her shoulder and said to me in Welsh, if you absolutely want to be a monk, you wouldn't think of going to Ampleforth, would you? I thought to myself, what thick words. What do parents know? As Oscar Wilde said, I'm not young enough to know everything. Listen, little people, Daddy and Mammy might actually know something that you don't. And one looks back, and the very fact of having Dad and Mam together is not indifferent either. Little things that made the big difference. I remember it was almost a moment of sacramental healing and bonding when in those days, in the 50s and 60s, things were very simple. All the family did everything together. And there was one big treat that we used to look forward to once a week, allowed to stay up a little bit late on a Sunday evening to watch together Perry Mason and try to solve it, who done it, guessing together. And I would be sitting between Dad's legs by the fire, cosy and warm, safe and sound. Together! We don't need great big presents. We don't actually always have to have a lot of things going outside the family to amuse the children. Being together and little shared fun is not indifferent either. And when it came to Christmas, Dad became a child again, and once a year he would set up a huge Meccano working model of something that moved. Also, at that period of year, we would all spend a lot of wasted time playing an old, I think you may know Monopoly, but there was one after it, it was Go. It took 3 hours, but it was all together. 3 hours of completely wasted time, which bonded the family together. Remember, my friends, investing time in sharing with your children, and if you're courting, with each other, without a third party in the midst, even on a screen, cannot be replaced. For young people now cannot actually easily amuse themselves without showing them something on this. The classic walk and talk is not good enough. There are other things that also we can cultivate in the course of the day that heal almost in a sacramental way. For the day is made of little things. I mentioned the family. It's true also in a community. The sense of humour is the gift that God has given us on a daily basis to calm things down and relativize things. I mentioned my father. He would come out with things which would make your ribs shake sometimes, the unexpected. When camping one holiday on the continent, I was in the small compartment and my parents were in the other compartment of the big tent, and I'd hear this talk going on next door. The flies out there were the size of monsters and they would eat. And my mother got the stings and they were going to bubbles, so she needed antihistamine pills. So in the hours of the night I heard this going on next door. The tablet. Let's find a tablet. The tablet here. The tablet. Here's your tablet. Now, you want me to say hi Moss over it? No. And then other things would go on. They would quote Shakespeare at each other, and even the scriptures, amazing, would go on at our table. One day, Dad was eating a glorified orange, but it was indigestible, so the whole of the said orange came out on the plate on the table. My mother said in a loud voice, "Idris!" That's his name. He calmly quoted scripture in the best Welsh, "Prove all things, hold fast that which is good," and moved on. My friends, life, as Fulton Sheen said, is worth living. Why make it heavy, like that child which said at table, "I don't like that"? It is one language the Lord has given us, from great to small, even actually between animals and humans, which is sacramental too. The shortest distance between friends is a hug. Be generous with your hugs, for one day they'll come back to you on your copybook. I caused healing and not pain in my day, and I learned the secret of little, little.